Captain Elena Marquez crouched in the suffocating darkness of the Amazon basin, sweat slicking her brow. She had trained here long before the aliens came, long before the galaxy even acknowledged Earth's existence. The jungle was her mentor, patient, merciless, alive. Now it would be her weapon. The Galactic Federation thought war was fought with fleets, artillery, and flawless logistics. They could not imagine that mud could swallow tanks, that insects could bleed soldiers dry, or that trees themselves could become executioners when guided by human cunning. They measured power in numbers and ships, not in the patience of a hunter waiting silently in the shadows. Elena's unit, Earth's Jungle Special Forces, were ghosts in the green abyss. They needed no resupply, no orbital support. Their rations were roots, their shelters woven from leaves. They had become children of the canopy, inheritors of every predator that stalked beneath its shade. The Federation thought humans soft, yet the jungle had hardened them into something unrecognizable. Sergeant Darius Cole crouched at her side, broad shoulders camouflaged with streaks of mud and leaf fragments. He carried himself with a reverent calm, a man who laughed too easily in the face of fear. Elena trusted him as much for his steady rifle as for his ability to keep the squad from drowning in despair. "They're moving heavy through the valley," he whispered, breath barely stirring the air, loud enough to wake every bird for miles. Guess subtlety's not their strong suit. His grin was a flash of teeth in the gloom. Private Imani Reyes lingered a step behind, the youngest in the unit, eyes sharp despite the weight of exhaustion. She had grown up in the shadows of these forests, but had never believed she would fight for the entire planet within them. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her rifle, but when Elena's gaze met hers, Imani steadied. Elena saw in her the reflection of who she herself had once been, raw, uncertain, but willing to be forged by fire. The squad numbered fewer than a dozen, each soldier a specialist molded by years of training. Where the Federation deployed armies, Earth deployed whispers. Where the aliens relied on scanners, humans trusted instinct, the subtle shift of leaves, the silence after a bird call that warned a movement. To survive here required more than technology. It required humility before the wild. And humility was something the Federation had never learned. Scouts reported that the Federation had landed in force, deploying walkers and drones to clear swaths of jungle. They believed victory would be a matter of cutting down trees and installing command posts. To them, Earth's wilderness was an obstacle, not an adversary. Elena knew better. The wilderness was an accomplice, a partner that would smother their arrogance one vine, one storm, one ambush at a time. She signaled her squad forward, movements fluid, practiced. They advanced through shadows, their bodies blending with foliage, rifles wrapped in cloth to mute their outlines. Ahead, alien voices echoed in guttural tones, punctuated by the metallic hiss of machinery. Federation soldiers marched in gleaming armor, each step sinking awkwardly into the mud, sensors scanning uselessly against the canopy's interference. Elena crouched behind a root thicker than a man's torso, studying the patrol. They moved in tight formation, weapons bristling, helmets glowing faintly with the blue sheen of their optics. To untrained eyes, they seemed invincible. To Elena, they looked like prey parading blindly through a hunter's territory. She raised 2 fingers, the signal. Cole nodded, slipping into position. Imani steadied her breath. The squad dispersed like water across rock, surrounding the patrol without a sound. Then, in an instant, the jungle erupted. A vine snare jerked tight, dragging one alien into the undergrowth. A pit, disguised beneath leaves, swallowed 2 more, impaling their armor on sharpened stakes. Gunfire cracked once, twice, then silence reclaimed the air. The squad melted back into shadows, leaving only twisted bodies as proof they had ever been there. Elena's heart pounded, not from fear but from certainty. This was how they would win, not through grand battles, but through erosion. The Federation would bleed slowly, their confidence eaten alive until nothing remained but fear. That night, the squad gathered in a concealed hollow, rain dripping steadily from the canopy above. Cole leaned back against a trunk, smirking. They're going to start thinking the forest itself hates them. His humor was dark, but it steadied the younger soldiers. Imani sat quietly, cleaning her weapon, but her eyes burned with unspoken questions. Elena chose to answer the one she saw most clearly. "You did well today," she said softly. Imani looked up, startled, as though uncertain she deserved the praise. "But I saw your hesitation before you struck. Don't let fear linger. Fear sharpens you only if you act. If you pause, it kills." Imani swallowed, nodding. "I'll do better." "You'll learn," Elena corrected. "The jungle teaches faster than I ever could." As the squad drifted into exhausted rest, Elena remained awake, listening to the symphony of the night. The buzz of insects, the croak of distant frogs, the whisper of wind through leaves. She thought of the Federation's sneer. Earth is nothing but wilderness. They had no idea what wilderness meant. Wilderness was patience. Wilderness was adaptation. Wilderness was survival etched into every root and river. And wilderness had chosen its champions. By dawn, alien search parties scoured the region, their voices harsh with frustration. Elena watched from a ridge as mechs stomped through swamps, sinking deeper with every step, their legs hissing as mud clogged servos. Drones sputtered and fell as humidity corroded circuits. Even without human interference, the jungle fought back. With human hands guiding it, it became merciless. Elena turned to her squad, her voice quiet but firm. "This is only the beginning. They don't know it yet, but the Federation has already lost. They think they're fighting us. They're fighting the jungle, and the jungle doesn't lose." The soldiers listened, their exhaustion lifting under her conviction. Cole gave a low chuckle. "Then let's make sure they learn fast." Imani's lips pressed into a determined line, her fear transforming into steel. As the sun broke through the canopy, shafts of gold piercing the damp haze, Elena smiled for the first time since the invasion began. The Federation thought Earth was weak, thought humanity had nothing to offer but wilderness. Soon they would learn the truth. That wilderness was the deadliest weapon of all, and humans wielded it with unmatched precision. The first alien landing zones lay in ruins, but the Federation refused to admit defeat. Commanders declared the setbacks were temporary, the result of faulty equipment or undisciplined troops, not the cunning of Earth's defenders. More transports descended through the heavy atmosphere, unleashing fresh battalions armed with heavier weapons, sturdier mechs, and drones equipped with multi-spectrum scanners. The Federation believed sheer force would crush whatever resistance lurked in the foliage. They could not accept that the jungle itself was their true adversary. Captain Elena Marquez studied the alien reinforcements from a ridge cloaked in thick undergrowth. Beside her, Sergeant Darius Cole adjusted binoculars scavenged from a fallen alien officer, their strange optics now repurposed for human eyes. "They keep sending more," Cole muttered, voice low but edged with satisfaction. "Every time they think it'll be enough, and every time the forest eats them alive." Elena did not reply immediately. She watched the invaders carve paths through the trees, their machines grinding roots into mulch, their soldiers trudging heavily in exosuits that hissed with every movement. She saw arrogance in their posture, even now. To them, the humans were still an inconvenience, not a threat. That arrogance was the opening she intended to exploit. Her squad crouched behind her, their faces painted with mud and leaves, bodies blending seamlessly with the earth. They were tired, but their eyes burned with resolve. Private Imani Reyes, the youngest of the unit, clutched her rifle tightly, glancing at Elena as if seeking reassurance. Elena met her gaze with steady calm. "Remember," she whispered, "we don't match them shot for shot. We make them fear the ground they walk on." Imani nodded, the words anchoring her nerves. The first strike of the day was simple. As an alien convoy rolled along a crude road cut into the forest, explosives buried beneath the soil detonated. The blast hurled armored vehicles into the air, scattering debris across the canopy. Before the dust settled, Elena's squad emerged from the trees, swift and precise. They targeted stragglers, then vanished as plasma fire erupted wildly in every direction. When Federation reinforcements arrived minutes later, there were no humans to be found, only the bodies of their comrades and the smoldering wreckage of machines that had been meant to intimidate. In the aftermath, alien officers barked orders, demanding tighter patrols and faster progress. But progress meant nothing in terrain that conspired against them. Mechs sank knee-deep in mud that appeared solid until stepped upon. Vines tangled gear, insects infiltrated armor seals, and the constant humidity sapped strength faster than any firefight. Every hour drained morale, and every shadow whispered danger. Elena knew the jungle was her ally, but she never grew careless. Each mission was a calculated risk. She rotated her squad in shifts, ensuring rest when possible, reinforcing discipline through quiet confidence. Her leadership was not about grand speeches, but about the small acts of trust, sharing water with a soldier, checking weapons herself, and reminding them of the cause they fought for. Earth was more than land. It was their inheritance, their proof to the galaxy that humanity would not be dismissed as primitive. Cole embodied the other half of leadership, irreverent, bold, unshakable. After one ambush that left a dozen alien soldiers sprawled across a ravine, he leaned against a tree and smirked. You'd think after the third time they'd stop marching in straight lines. His humor drew quiet laughter from the squad, cutting through exhaustion. Even Elena allowed herself a faint smile. She knew morale was as fragile as it was vital. Laughter in the face of overwhelming odds was a weapon just as sharp as any blade. The Federation escalated again. They deployed aerial drones, their wings buzzing through the canopy, sensors sweeping for heat signatures. For a moment, Elena worried, but the squad had prepared. They smeared themselves with layers of mud, cooled their bodies in rivers until their heat signatures matched the ambient temperature. Drones passed overhead and registered nothing but jungle noise. When one descended too low, Cole brought it down with a single, silent shot. Its wreckage was quickly buried beneath foliage. Still, the pressure mounted. Imani, after a third mission, confessed in a hushed voice that she could not shake the image of the alien soldier she had shot. Elena placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Fear is normal. What matters is what you do with it. Out here, hesitation kills. Out here, we fight so Earth won't burn. Imani nodded, tears unshed but determination settling deeper in her posture. Her growth was slow but visible, forged by each mission's trial. As days turned into weeks, whispers of Earth's defenders spread through alien ranks. Soldiers spoke of humans who appeared as shadows, of voices in the night that lured patrols into traps, of unseen hunters who turned the jungle into a killing ground. The Federation commanders tried to silence the rumors, but fear eroded discipline. Squads refused to march without mechs. Some soldiers fired at rustling leaves. The wilderness, once mocked, had become their nightmare. Elena understood the war was psychological as much as physical. Each ambush was designed not just to reduce numbers, but to amplify fear. She instructed her squad to leave signs, an alien helmet dangling from a vine, a trail of footprints leading into quicksand, a recorded scream played from hidden speakers. The message was clear. The jungle itself was against them. Soon, Federation troops hesitated at every step, their nerves fraying under invisible pressure. But victory did not mean safety. Elena knew the Federation had not yet unleashed its full strength. Sooner or later, their pride would yield to desperation, and they would escalate beyond infantry and drones. She felt the weight of that inevitability pressing on her shoulders, heavier than the damp air. Yet she also knew retreat was not an option. Humanity's survival demanded resilience, demanded they hold the line until the Federation realized the cost of conquest outweighed its prize. One evening, as her squad lay hidden on a slope overlooking an alien encampment, Elena listened to the sounds of the forest. Frogs croaking, insects buzzing, rain pattering against the leaves. Beneath those natural rhythms came the mechanical hum of alien machinery and the nervous chatter of soldiers who no longer sounded confident. She turned to her squad. Tonight, we strike again. Not to win the war, but to remind them they cannot win. Cole grinned, checking his weapon. Imani steadied her breathing. The others nodded, their resolve hardening. The squad slipped into the darkness, each step practiced, each breath controlled. They carried not just weapons, but the weight of Earth's defiance. Above them, alien lights flickered in the camp. Below them, the jungle whispered its approval. The humans were no longer merely soldiers. They were the embodiment of their world's wild heart. As the first explosion lit the night, Elena knew the battle was far from over. Yet she also knew the Federation had already lost something crucial: certainty. And once certainty was gone, defeat was only a matter of time. The Federation's patience snapped. Weeks of humiliation at the hands of Earth's unseen defenders had tarnished their reputation across the spiral arms. What had been promised as a swift conquest had become a mire of attrition, and the War Council's laughter had long since curdled into rage. Reinforcements were no longer composed of raw recruits. Now, hardened veterans arrived in formation, clad in heavier armor, their weapons glowing with lethal precision. Above them descended atmospheric warships, their engines churning the air into storms. The Federation had decided to end the resistance, no matter the cost. Captain Elena Marquez watched the escalation from a concealed ridge, her eyes narrowing as the jungle trembled beneath the invaders' machines. The air was thick with fuel and ozone, scents alien to a place defined by rot and life. This was no longer a campaign of arrogance. It was desperation masked as strength. She knew that if the Federation succeeded in establishing dominance here, Earth would not survive the next phase. Yet she also knew desperation left cracks in even the most disciplined armor. Her squad crouched beside her, silent as the undergrowth itself. Sergeant Darius Cole spat into the dirt, his expression grim. They're scared. That's why they brought the big guns. Scared things are dangerous. His words carried both warning and reassurance, a reminder that the enemy's ferocity was born of fear, not superiority. Private Amani Reyes felt the weight of those words more than anyone. She had grown in confidence, her hands steady during firefights, her voice firmer when relaying signals. But fear lingered, not of the jungle or the aliens, but of the scale of the fight. How do we stop that? She whispered, nodding toward a towering mech crushing trees with each step. Elena answered with calm conviction. We don't stop it. We bleed it. We remind them the jungle belongs to us, not to them. One strike at a time. The squad moved under cover of night. Rain poured relentlessly, masking their approach as they crept through mud and shadow. Ahead, Federation troops had established a fortified base, walls of energy shimmering between pylons, watchtowers bristling with weapons. It was an imposing sight, a statement meant to break human will. But Elena saw flaws. Guards lulled into routines, supply convoys unguarded at their flanks, machines too heavy for the swamp they stood upon. The Federation still did not understand that strength could be turned against itself. Cole and two soldiers rigged charges beneath the pylons while Elena and Amani stalked the outer patrols. The patrols marched in pairs, their luminous visors cutting swaths of light through the darkness. Elena struck first, a garrote snapping around a soldier's throat, dragging him into silence before he could cry out. Imani, heart hammering, mirrored her captain's precision, silencing the second with a knife thrust learned through repetition. When the charges detonated minutes later, the shimmering walls collapsed in a cascade of sparks. The jungle roared with chaos as alarms blared, and the squad melted back into the night, leaving destruction in their wake. The Federation responded with fury. Searchlights swept the forest, drones circled like mechanical vultures, and squads scoured every ridge and riverbank. But the jungle swallowed humans in ways the aliens could not fathom. Covered in mud, submerged in swamps, or hidden in hollowed-out trees, Elena's unit slipped past every dragnet. And when the Federation withdrew, convinced they had restored control, the humans struck again. Psychological warfare deepened. Strange calls echoed through the nights, recorded and distorted to mimic alien distress signals. Booby traps transformed familiar trails into death traps. Once, a Federation squad discovered a clearing littered with their own helmets, arranged in a circle, staring inward as though bearing witness to their inevitable doom. Fear hollowed them out, leaving even veterans glancing nervously into shadows. But the cost weighed heavily on Elena's squad as well. Exhaustion gnawed at them. Supplies ran thin, forcing them to scavenge from enemy corpses. Infection threatened wounds in the relentless damp. Every decision Elena made meant life or death for those she had come to regard as family. Late at night, when her soldiers finally slept, she stayed awake, listening to the jungle's hum, measuring whether her choices were enough. The burden was hers alone, but she carried it without complaint because surrender was unthinkable. Cole noticed her weariness and chose to confront it with blunt honesty. You keep carrying all of us on your shoulders, Cap, but you're flesh and blood. You break, we all break. Elena met his gaze in the dim light of their camp, her voice low but steady. Then I'll bend, not break. That's what this war demands. We don't get the luxury of falling. Cole nodded, understanding, though the worry in his eyes lingered. Imani, meanwhile, grew sharper with every mission. The fear that once paralyzed her had transformed into fuel, guiding her through firefights with increasing precision. During one ambush, she saved another soldier's life by spotting a hidden drone before it could sound an alarm. Her courage, though untested weeks ago, now shone with a quiet fire. Elena saw in her the future of their resistance, proof that the jungle was forging more than survivors. It was creating warriors who embodied Earth's defiance. The central conflict sharpened into clarity. The Federation sought to dominate through overwhelming presence, but humans fought to erode, to bleed, to outlast. Neither side could claim victory yet, but the balance shifted with every failed alien patrol, every whispered rumor of ghosts in the jungle. What began as arrogance had become fear, and fear corroded the Federation faster than bullets. One night, as the squad prepared another ambush, thunder split the sky. Federation warships loomed above the canopy, their weapons glowing ominously. The escalation Elena had dreaded had arrived. Orbital fire threatened to reduce the jungle to ash. Her squad looked to her, fear flickering in their eyes, not of the aliens, but of losing the very ground that sustained them. Elena felt her heart tighten, but her voice remained calm. Then we fight harder. If they want to burn the jungle, we'll make them pay for every spark. The ambush was brutal. Alien forces pushed deeper, bolstered by aerial support. Plasma fire lit the trees. Explosions shook the earth, and the night became a battlefield of fire and shadow. Elena's squad struck like lightning, emerging from smoke to fell soldiers, then vanishing before retaliation. Cole laughed through the chaos, his defiance a beacon. Imani moved with deadly grace, her rifle singing through the storm. The jungle bled, but did not yield. When dawn broke, the battlefield was scarred, trees smoldering, rivers choked with debris. But the Federation had failed again to crush the resistance. Their losses mounted, their soldiers shaken. The jungle stood, battered yet unbroken, sheltering its human defenders who, though weary, still breathed defiance. Elena surveyed the aftermath, her chest tight with exhaustion and pride. They had endured another night, another escalation, another attempt to erase them. The Federation was learning, painfully and slowly, that conquest was not inevitable. And as long as she and her squad drew breath, Earth's wilderness would remain unconquered. Yet Elena knew the war was far from finished. The Federation would not stop until forced to. They had not yet faced the full fury of what humans could unleash when cornered. That moment was coming, and when it did, the galaxy would witness a truth long forgotten. Humanity thrived where others perished. The jungle burned. Flames licked the canopy. Smoke rose in black columns, and the Federation's warships roared above, vomiting fire into the wilderness they could not conquer by patience. The Federation's commanders had abandoned the illusion of control. They no longer sought to pacify or occupy. They sought annihilation. If Earth's defenders would not submit, then the jungles that shielded them would be turned into ash, and with them, every secret path, every ambush site, every weapon the humans wielded so effectively. Captain Elena Marquez crouched in the haze, coughing against the bitter smoke, her rifle slick with ash and rain. Around her, her squad fought to stay steady as the world they had relied on seemed to collapse. Sergeant Darius Cole leaned against a scorched tree, his grin grim but still present. Guess they finally figured out how to fight the jungle, he rasped, eyes flashing. Elena shook her head, her voice low but steady. No, they're trying to kill what they can't beat. That's not strategy. That surrender wearing a mask. Private Imani Reyes wiped sweat and soot from her brow. Her youth had hardened into something sharper, something forged in fire. She no longer trembled when she raised her weapon. She no longer looked for reassurance. She scanned the skies with eyes filled with fury. If they want to burn everything, she said, we make sure the fire turns on them. Elena heard no fear in her tone. The girl who had once hesitated had become a warrior who spoke like a leader. The squad regrouped in the ruins of a clearing, flames crackling around them. Supplies were low, ammunition scarcer, and exhaustion pressed on every muscle. Yet their spirits had not broken. The jungle still sheltered them in fragments, ravines untouched by fire, rivers too wet to ignite, caves hidden by thick stone. And in those places, Elena knew, lay the key to turning destruction against the invaders. She gathered her squad, voices hushed against the hum of passing warships. They think fire will erase us. But fire is hungry. It spreads. It consumes everything. If we guide it, if we use it, their own flames will become their trap. The soldiers listened, their exhaustion lifting as her plan took root. Cole chuckled darkly. Use their fire against them. I like it. Let's make the jungle bite back one last time. For days, the squad moved through smoke and chaos, turning the Federation's tactics inward. They set controlled blazes that funneled enemy patrols into ravines. They lured mechs into burning marshes where their weight dragged them into boiling mud. They planted charges along fuel depots, transforming alien stockpiles into roaring infernos. Each strike deepened the enemy's panic, and the jungle, though wounded, seemed to roar with the humans' defiance. Imani proved herself in those days, guiding younger soldiers through firestorms, keeping them focused when panic threatened. In one battle, she dragged a wounded comrade from a collapsing canopy, refusing to leave him behind, even as flames seared her arms. When Elena confronted her afterward, voice sharp with anger at the risk, Imani stood unflinching. You told me the jungle teaches us cunning. It also teaches loyalty. We don't leave our own. Elena saw in her the reflection of every lesson the wilderness had given humanity. The girl had become more than a soldier. She had become a symbol. The Federation's desperation deepened. Reports from their own soldiers described humans as wraiths, immune to fire, unbound by fear. Their commanders barked orders louder, but even discipline could not smother terror. Entire battalions vanished into smoke. Convoys burned before reaching their destinations. The wilderness, instead of dying, seemed to conspire with its human children, each ember carrying their vengeance. At last, the Federation brought down their ultimate weapon, a colossal warship descending into the atmosphere, bristling with weapons capable of leveling entire continents. It hovered like a false god above the jungle, promising final obliteration. For a moment, Elena felt the weight of despair press against her chest. But then she saw the truth. Its size was its weakness. It required fuel depots, landing pads, and supply chains stretching through terrain already scarred by human defiance. If they could strike at its heart, they could shatter not just the warship, but the Federation's will. The plan was audacious, perhaps suicidal. Elena laid it out with calm clarity, her voice steady though her heart thundered. They would infiltrate the ship's ground supply lines, overrun its refueling station, and plant charges that would ignite the massive reserves feeding the warship. It would require precision, timing, and courage beyond measure. Cole grinned like a man already dancing with death. Finally, a target worth the trouble. Imani nodded once, her face set like stone. We finished this. The night of the assault was a symphony of chaos. Smoke choked the sky, fire crackled across the land, and the Federation's warship loomed overhead, casting a shadow like the hand of fate. Elena's squad moved like phantoms, slipping through weakened patrols, cutting down sentries with silent blades. At the fuel depot, massive tanks glowed beneath protective shields. Cole led the charge to disable the emitters, his laughter echoing as alien fire streaked past him. Come on, you bastards. Catch me if you can. He drew their fire, giving Elena and Imani the seconds they needed to plant explosives. The battle erupted into full fury. Plasma bolts tore through the night, trees exploded into ash, and the ground shook beneath the weight of alien machines. Imani fought with unrelenting ferocity, covering her comrades, her rifle never wavering. Elena moved with the calm of inevitability, guiding her soldiers step by step, refusing to yield even as wounds bled and smoke blinded. When the final charge was armed, Elena gave the signal. Her squad pulled back, sprinting through fire and chaos as the fuel depot erupted. The explosion lit the night like a newborn sun, a roaring inferno that climbed into the sky. The shock wave slammed into the warship above, tearing through its hull, igniting its reserves. The colossal vessel shuddered, groaned, and then split apart in a cataclysm that shook the earth. Fire rained from the heavens, wreckage plummeting into rivers and valleys, the Federation's pride undone by the very element it had tried to wield. Silence followed, broken only by the crackle of dying flames and the labored breaths of survivors. Elena stood amid the ruin, her squad gathered around her, bloodied but alive. Cole's grin was weary but triumphant. Guess the jungle wins again. Imani looked at the burning wreckage, her eyes reflecting both sorrow and pride. No, she said softly. We did. The Federation's forces, leaderless and shattered, began to retreat. Their arrogance had cost them too much. Their confidence turned to ashes with their worship. Word would spread through the galaxy of Earth's defiance, of humans who turned wilderness into a weapon, of soldiers who refused to yield. The war was not over. Elena knew the Federation's wrath could return, but something fundamental had shifted. Humanity was no longer a forgotten speck. They were a force the galaxy could not ignore. Elena looked at her squad, at the faces etched with exhaustion and firelight, and felt the weight of what they had achieved. They were not just survivors. They were the embodiment of Earth's wild heart, unbroken, unyielding, unafraid. And as long as they stood, the jungle stood with them.